Hi, it's Vicki Dyer with Vicki Dyer Real Estate and Remax Center. And I have another video in my series for sellers. Did you know? Stay tuned. Listen to these numbers about why there will not be a housing crash. Today's market is very different than it was before the housing crash in 2008. Here's why. It's harder to get a loan now, and that's actually a good thing. It was much easier to get a home loan during the lead up to the 2008 housing crisis than it is today. Back then, banks had different lending standards, making it easy for just about anyone to qualify for a home loan or refinance an existing one. Things are different today. Home buyers face increasingly higher standards from mortgage companies. This graph uses data from the Mortgage Bankers Association to show this difference. The lower the number, the harder it is to get a mortgage. The higher the number, the easier it is. The peak in the graph shows that back then, lending standards weren't as strict as they are now. That means lending institutions took on much greater risk in both the person and the mortgage products offered around the crash. That led to mass defaults and a flood of foreclosures coming onto the market. There are far fewer homes for sale today, so prices won't crash because there were too many homes for sale during the housing crisis, many of which were short sales and foreclosures that caused home prices to fall dramatically. But today, there's an inventory shortage, not a surplus. This graph uses data from the National Association of Realtors and the Federal Reserve to show how the month's supply of homes available now, shown in blue, compares to the crash shown in red. Housing supply is much lower than before. This graph shows the annual average of months' supply of homes for sale from 1999 to the present. Today, unsold inventory sits at just a 3-month supply. That's compared to the peak of 10.4 months supply back in 2008. That means there's nowhere near enough inventory on the market for home prices to come crashing down like they did back then. People are not using their homes as ATMs like they did in the early 2000s. Back in the lead up to the housing crash, many homeowners were borrowing against the equity in their homes to finance new cars, boats, and vacations. So, when prices started to fall as inventory rose too high, many of those unfortunate homeowners found themselves underwater. Tappable equity is at an all-time high. But today, homeowners are a lot more cautious. Even though prices have skyrocketed in the past few years, homeowners aren't tapping into their equity the way they did back then. Black Knight reports that tappable equity, which is the amount of equity available for homeowners to access before hitting a maximum 80% loan to value ratio, has actually reached an all-time high. That means, as a whole, homeowners have more equity available than ever before. And that's great. Homeowners are in a much stronger position today than in the early 2000s. That same report from Black Knight goes on to explain only 1.1% of mortgage holders ended the year underwater, down from 1.5% at this time last year. And since homeowners are on more solid footing today, they'll have options to avoid foreclosures. That limits the number of distressed properties coming onto the market, and without a flood of inventory, prices won't come tumbling down. Here is the bottom line. While you may be hoping for something that brings prices down, that's not what the data tells us is going to happen. The most current research clearly shows that today's market is nothing like it was last time. And you know what? This is a good thing. Thank you.